Welcome back to another edition of Through the Smoke, a Miami Hurricanes football and recruiting podcast here on the 24/7 Sports Network. David Lake, joined as always by Gabby Urrutia. We're here to discuss everything once again in a one podcast week. I've been a little bit under the weather, battling a little bit of a minor cold, so didn't want to get on here sounding gross. So we're going to knock this out today. We're going to get into college football playoff rankings talk. We're going to get into Miami's recruiting efforts and some interesting recruiting bumps as it relates to Miami's current recruiting class. And then we're going to preview this week's game against Virginia Tech. All right. Before we dive into things, want to highlight two of our sponsors. Of course, Canes Connection, that is Miami's collective. They play a critical role in Miami being able to make this late high school recruiting push and also secure what looks like is going to be a top 10 class for the Hurricanes, which is impressive. So go support those guys at Canes Connection any way you can at canesconnection.com. Go be a member over there. Best way to support the program is to go support Canes Connection. Also, want to highlight our guy, Nick Musarino at Musarino Law. If you've been injured in any type of accident, whether that's slip and fall, boating, trucking, Uber, Lyft, any type of car accident, Nick Musarino is the guy you should contact. He's the lawyer I would hit up if I was in this type of need. You can contact him at 561-960-9870 or visit the website flinjury.law. And if you want to talk about the shambolic college football playoff rankings, he's more than happy to discuss that with you too. All right, so Gabby, let's start there. Let's talk with the latest college football playoff rankings. Came out Tuesday. Miami did move up 2 spots, which I guess is encouraging. You look at some of the percentages that are given. If Miami wins out, what is their percent chance that they get into the playoff? They continue to rise as well. Depending on the metric you look at, I think somewhere in that 75% range is where some of the probabilities put it at. But I think Miami still needs help. I think Miami needs probably both things, honestly. They need a little bit of chaos from the teams in front of them, and they need the committee to get their minds right and fix their rankings over the next 2 weeks. And certainly Miami media is doing its part to kind of hammer home, uh, the issues that are pretty obvious with the way the rankings are laid out. But anyways, Gabby, Miami's at number 13. What are your takeaways? Where do you want to go with the college football playoff rankings this week as it relates to Miami?
I think it's encouraging that they did come up, that they were able to, move up. What it was from 15 to 13. So I think that that's a good sign of the trajectory. We talked about the style points and winning with style points. That's what they've done these last 2 weeks with wins over Syracuse and a big win over NC State. So, I think that this is kind of a beauty pageant. I think that's the reality of what this thing is. And I think Miami needs to just continue to sort of handle its business in a big way. And I think the committee's obviously holding Miami to their losses. They're weighing those out more than their wins. And, again, 2 losses to 7-3 teams. So I think all Miami can do at this point is show the committee that they're an improved football team, that they're dominating their schedule, the teams that are in front of them, and that they are deserving of being in that top 12. When it comes to some of these other teams that are ranked ahead of them, I don't really get it. But, I think that's just the reality of the situation that Miami's in, and all they can do at this point is just kind of handle business.
Yeah, really, like from a Miami standpoint, right? The gripes, I think, start at the ranking spots 9 through,
Hmm.
Miami's 13,
Right.
and those are the teams really that matter when it comes to Miami getting into the playoff or not. And, it's kind of honestly, this isn't like very clear cut, but they talk about pools or tiers of how they look at teams. And it seems like the way they kind of look at it is, okay, the first four teams in the ranking, those are the teams that will get a bye. So we'll look at those four teams and, decide, if the fifth team deserves to be whatever. The next tier of teams would be 5 through 8. Those are the teams that get to host the first round playoff game. And then you're looking at 9 through 12. Those are going to be, maybe it's a conference champ. It looks like this year's, particularly 9 through 12, is more those at-large teams, those teams that get the final couple spots in the college football playoff. And that's where Miami's at right now. And
Mhm.
so if you're looking at 9 through 13, and look, Miami's at number 13 conveniently. And the college football playoff kind of says, look, we don't put Notre Dame and we don't put Miami in the same tier right now. So that head-to-head conversation doesn't happen yet between Notre Dame and Miami, which is convenient for the committee, inconvenient for Miami. And why is it laid out like this? And this is where some of the issues, I think, really start to bubble up. So Notre Dame's at number 9, which again is convenient because that puts them just out of that range to have that head-to-head debate with Miami, which Miami's going to need, I think, to get in. You look at you look at kind of how this is going to shake out, Gabby, and there's still a lot of football left to be played, but it kind of looks like you got to be in that top 10 to
Mhm.
get into the college football playoff this year. It's not a top 11, it's a top 10 because in theory, and again, there's a lot of football to be played. Maybe chaos happens in the ACC and Miami is in Charlotte. But for now, let's just say the ACC champion is not going to be Miami. They are ranked below Miami. And so that's a team that would get in that's not in the top 11. And then, of course, the group of five winner is going to be the fifth conference champion. That's another team outside of the top 11 or top 12 that would not get in. So you got to be in that top 10 range, right? And if you're projecting, man, it looks like this is going like if things go relatively chalky, it's looking more and more likely that this is going to come down to a debate for that last spot or two between Notre Dame and Miami. And conveniently, look, Alabama lost a game last weekend to Oklahoma, and Alabama dropped what, 6 spots,
Yep.
which was interesting. That's a dramatic drop. Number one, Alabama played a better game. They just didn't win the game. So they were punished significantly for that performance. And they were slotted behind Notre Dame. Again,
Mhm.
not allowing this head-to-head debate between Notre Dame and Miami to happen. You look at the resumes of Notre Dame and Alabama, and I think you can question the ranking as well. Notre Dame, their best win is USC. Alabama has 3 or 4 top 25 wins. Now, Alabama has the worst loss of the two teams, losing the season opener to Florida State. But just from a resume standpoint, strength of schedule standpoint, who have you played and who have you beat standpoint, Alabama's resume is much stronger than Notre Dame. So why are they ranked behind Notre Dame? Nobody can really give a straight
I
answer.
just think they're obsessed with the losses. Like to me, it's like
Yes.
who you lost to matters more than who you beat. And
Yes.
it's just like, what do we do? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, I feel like that continues to kind of be the dialogue. It's just, oh, the loss, the quality of losses is just like, it doesn't work. Like, I just feel like in no sport does it work that way. Like,
It's that, and I think it's they really are doing everything they can to not make this Notre Dame Miami debate
100%.
happen yet. Now,
Right.
will that continue if Miami continues to keep winning? Maybe, but it's a silly way to rank things. Like,
It doesn't make any sense. To me, it doesn't make any sense. Like even I think even like the Utah debate of being
yep,
over Miami doesn't make sense just because yeah, you know what? Utah has lost to two top 25 teams, but they got splattered at home against Texas Tech. Like
mhm,
Miami and Utah have both played a top 10 team. Miami beat the top 10 team. Utah got splattered by the top 10 team. So Like, what exactly is the situation that what are we doing? I don't know. I
What's
just don't.
so Utah's best wins right now? Well, it was Cincinnati. Cincinnati lost this week.
Yeah,
So then,
Since that loss doesn't look as good as it has before.
so now Utah's best win conveniently is against number 25 Arizona State, who was just put into the college football
Hmm.
playoff top 25 conveniently to
Right.
continue propping up the Big 12. Also, Utah Athletic Director Mark Harlan is now a part of the College Football Playoff Committee as he
Mm.
replaced Mac Rhodes, who stepped down for what reason we don't know. Um, so these are questionable ethical integrity type questions that I think are worth asking. Um, as I put my tinfoil hat on.
I
Uh,
think it's fair. Look, this is a sketchy process.
yeah.
I don't know. I guess the intent was to eliminate the computer error, but now there's just like human bias involved. Like I think that that's natural in any sort of selection process, which is, I guess it's hard in college football because like how else are you really going to do this? But still, like this is definitely a flawed system, and the logic, the issue I have is that it's just it's inconsistent because something that's important for in an argument for one school is like the counter argument against another school. So it's just to me it doesn't really make sense.
To
Like
me, also, like, okay. And look, I'm not here pounding the table like for BYU. I don't think BYU is some great team, honestly. But if you're going by the resumes and how the College Football Playoff Committee is ranking teams, why is BYU even below Notre Dame, if we're
yeah,
being honest?
yeah,
BYU has beat Utah, which is a higher ranked win than Notre Dame. And BYU has one loss, which is a quality loss to Texas Tech.
yeah, a quality three touchdown loss to Texas Tech.
Right. So why are they ranked below Notre Dame? Other than, look, eye test, yes, I agree. Notre Dame is better than BYU, but um, it's just to me, this 9 through 12 shuffling is very important for Miami. And to me, if you're ranking it the way they tell us they're ranking it should go to me Alabama number 9, BYU number 10, Notre Dame number 11, Miami, or sorry, Miami number 11, Notre Dame 12, Utah 13. To me, if we're ranking it correctly, that's how we do it. Um, but anyways, and look, as we're looking forward, to me, Gabby, like, look, chaos happens and you shift what you think Miami needs week to week because nothing goes chalk. Um, but to me, like what I'm looking at from a Miami standpoint, I think you need Big 12 chaos. You need to like, does BYU falter down the stretch? Does Utah falter down the stretch? Does the committee come to its senses and flip Alabama and Notre Dame down the stretch because Alabama clearly has a better resume than Notre Dame? I also think this is to me, Gabby, like you could make the argument either way, I think. But in my opinion, I think you need the teams ahead of Notre Dame in the rankings to win out because I think if you give the committee the opportunity to move Notre Dame up the rankings into those next tiers, then that eliminates the potential discussion between the head-to-head discussion between Miami and Notre Dame because magically now Notre Dame's in that next tier up of being able to host a college football playoff game rather than just being an at-large team in the college football playoff. So to me, I think Miami needs this discussion to happen between Notre Dame and themselves, the head to head. I also think that's how Miami potentially jumps Utah. Um, Utah they're playing really well. They could certainly falter down the stretch, but if they don't, how does Miami jump them with the way they're currently continuing to rank Utah ahead of Miami? I think you need that head to head discussion with Notre Dame and Miami to happen, and they flip them. Now, worst case scenario from a Miami perspective is maybe they just put Utah in and they leave both Miami and Notre Dame out of the college football playoff, which would, you know,
No way. In no way, in no world do I see that happening.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I
So,
just I can't imagine Miami and Notre Dame getting left out of this. Honestly, I think the most likely scenario is Notre Dame's gets in and Miami doesn't. But I think it's just I think it would be I think that's a bad precedent to set as far as just like what are we playing? Because if you're an athletic director, right? It's just what are you going to schedule? Like, why are you going to schedule these games? Like to me, if I'm Miami and you're in this situation and that they were basically refusing to have a conversation about you and the team you beat with the same record, it's just all right. So why am I gonna like I can go beat up Cal Poly and Wyoming early in the
why play the
season?
games, period?
Yeah,
If you're a
exactly.
player or coach,
Right.
why are we
All
keeping score?
Exactly. I just feel like we're living in this like hypothetical world of college football of like, oh, this team would be favored and betting lines on neutral fields. It's like the games got played. Like it doesn't matter if you think Notre Dame's better than Miami right now. People thought Notre Dame was better than Miami on August 31st, and the game was played and Miami won.
Also,
So,
too, there's been, look, I recognize the score looks close of the game.
right. It wasn't
That game wasn't close.
at all.
And there's a lot of talk of, oh, if Notre Dame and Miami played today, Notre Dame would win. Okay, I mean, I guess, but like when they actually played the game, one team looked decidedly better than the other team.
Right.
And so I don't understand what we're doing there. So,
I hope the committee actually sits down and watches that game instead of just score like box score watches because it
yeah,
was
go
it was
rewatch it.
go rewatch that game and tell me that Miami doesn't if you're putting Notre Dame in, watch that game and tell me Miami doesn't at least deserve to be in too. Because there's no way you can justify putting Notre Dame in and not putting Miami in. But I think that's where we're
Right.
going.
Which is why I'm a little bit tinfoil hat about Utah.
Yeah. Utah,
That
Miami
could
should
be the
be
solution where they're like, well, we don't know what to do here. We're just going to put Utah in. And Utah's AD's on the committee.
yeah, which
And I
I mean,
understand they're supposed to leave the room, but come on, there's influence there.
of
And they're
course.
clearly propping up the Big 12. To me, like they're trying to turn this into a Big 12 versus ACC debate. It's not even about that. Is Miami one of the 12 best teams? Does Miami have one of the 12 best resumes? If they go 10
Yeah.
and 2 and Notre Dame goes 10 and 2 and there's one spot left between those two teams, it's kind of obvious who should get in
Right.
between those two teams.
Right. I'm with you.
Um, all right. So let's shift now to the 24/7 Sports rankings slash. Well, let's start with a commitment first because
Yep.
this was a nice little late addition here to the class. Tight end Gavin Muller flips from Colorado. He is the number 124 overall player in the country, according to 24/7 Sports. He got a nice little bump right before, no, right after he committed, right?
Right after.
I mean, it was already planned
Right, of course.
before the commitment, but I'm saying this because he is a late riser in the evaluation process. And I don't know if late bloomer is worth saying too, but he's a guy that continues to impress. And so he was committed to Colorado. They flipped him. Number 150 overall player according to industry composite rankings. 6'5", 255, 6'10 wingspan, explosive athlete. Just from a physical standpoint, has the potential to contribute early. There's a lot that goes into playing early at tight end. That's one of the hardest positions, I think, to play as a true freshman. But anyways, this commitment, Gabby, what do we need to know about it? How excited is Miami to get him in the boat?
Yeah, this is a big one just because Miami was really looking for their second tight end in this class and Weller, he's someone that really just started to kind of climb up and just become a coveted prospect this fall. Miami has placed around, we've talked about this, they placed a premium on these senior evaluations. This is a kid that's relatively new to the sport of football. and he's just gotten huge. You know, his body's just kind of physically maturing. He's like in 6'5", 255 already. Just looks like $1 million. Like is built like a college ready tight end right now. And you pair that with, you know, athleticism that's just like really impressive for a guy at that size. So he's still raw, but the arrow's definitely pointing up. And this is a guy that they identified here in the fall. Alabama offered him too. I believe LSU was in the mix. North Carolina tried to get involved, but Miami kind of identified him and locked in on him, and were able to kind of get this done. I think initially it was just like, you know, he really was kind of set with Colorado, and you know, I think at the more that Miami kind of came pushing and came pushing and came knocking, they kind of got back down over the weekend for the NC State game for an official visit and were able to kind of close the door on it. So huge pickup for Miami. You know, this is one of the top tight end prospects in the country, you know,
Yeah.
as we kind of wrap up the cycle. So it's a big win.
You watch his senior tape, and he does look like a nice athlete at his size, and there's a lot to work with there. So I think this is one to get excited about. We all know tight ends are important to the University of Miami in general, but also just to this offense, what they want to do with being multiple. Um, let's discuss Miami's recruiting class in general too, Gabby, because the commitment to Miami from Mueller certainly helped with the number 10 overall class now in the country. But also Miami got some nice recruiting bumps from, you know, senior tape rankings evaluations. Um, you know, you know the exact number, but it seemed like, I don't know, 6, 7 guys got nice little bumps from Miami in this class. So take us through that. Who are some of the guys to know that made nice little jumps here in the rankings?
Did you tell someone you're going to use 6'7" on the pod?
No.
That just came out naturally. No, it was 11 guys, which is nuts. That's a
Okay.
huge number. It was I've never seen. I don't know, David. Maybe this is a significantly,
This
overwhelmingly
late?
positive. Yeah, this late in the
Yeah.
process. And look, we and we've talked about this, like the senior evaluations, and like that stuff that they definitely say and all that stuff. But I think that this is at least from this context, we'll know soon as far as just when these guys actually get on campus. But it seems like their approach to just kind of after the summer, you know, they were kind of obviously not nowhere near done with this class, and they knew they had a lot more they still needed to accomplish, but they didn't force things. They kind of waited for things to come to them as far as just like, we're going to sit down every Monday and, you know, go do our plus zero minus and, you know, watch these guys and kind of see what happens. They did that, and it seems like it was a good approach because a lot of the guys that they added, you know, via flips, and even some of the guys that they did end up taking in the summer were have are trending positively.
To me
Uh,
too, real quick, like this is a separator to me in terms of like stacking talent
mhm.
because nowadays things are pushed up so early, so fast with offering, evaluating,
Yep.
taking commitments. And so you got to get the guys now that you know, have the mentality of, okay, I've committed to my school, whatever school that is, but I'm continuing to work at my craft and improve
Yep.
and get better. Like we talk about it, guy. How many guys now around the country commit in the summer? It's like
Yeah.
75% of the class. Like pretty much all the commitments are in the summer, which means they all have essentially the frameworks of their NIL deals set. So they know what money they're getting kind of no matter what. If they sign with that school, okay, cool. Who are the guys now that are still going to say, okay, I got this locked in, but I'm still going to work, and improve at my craft because this isn't a destination. This is part of the journey to where I want to get to, whether that's just maximizing who you are in college or, you know, getting to the NFL level. So, anyways, that's my rant on
No,
that.
no, and I think that's a good point. And look, I think that that's just a part of like just like the overall mentality. Like some of the way I've kind of had it phrased, it's like you're almost like imagine drafting before it's almost like drafting a player before like they're eligible for the NFL. Like imagine drafting like a college sophomore, and
Right.
it's like there's still so much more context. There's so much context missing from these evaluations. Then you have a good idea. That's not to say that you can't take good players in the summer, but there is
Right.
there's a piece to the puzzle that's missing from their senior seasons where they're the top dog, where they should be dominating, where their game should take the next step, where they're the older guy and the oldest guys in high school and all that stuff. So, nonetheless, let's get into these ranking bumps. Just maybe just do it one by one. Really, it just kind of fly through them really quickly. Jackson
Yeah.
Cantwell, small bump. He's obviously a top player nationally. He was previously ranked number 9. Now he's ranked number 7 nationally. So this was a pretty volatile update with a ton of newcomers and a ton of guys that are moving up and down. So Jackson Cantwell just moving up even within that 5-star top 10 framework, I think is a pretty significant deal. I think one of the biggest updates, wide receiver Samarian Wingo jumps up 125 spots from number 175 overall to number 50 overall. That puts him at, sorry, I'm just pulling up his profile. He's now considered a top 10 wide receiver nationally, the number 7 wide receiver in the country. So that's a huge, huge win. He's had an awesome season, David. I know that you're a big fan of him.
Yeah, he's got that basketball background, which I really like at receiver, and just understands, I think, how to run routes and get open, and I think too he's highly competitive when you watch his tape. He fights through tackles. Um, so yeah, I think he's a big time player. Top 100 receiver. We talk all the time. Miami needs to start stacking talent at wide receiver.
Hmm.
You and I both really like this freshman class they have right now. This class they're bringing in, a little different flavor, but I think the talent's also high. I know another one of the receivers got another
Yeah.
nice big bump too.
Yeah, Milan Paris. Miami kind of flipped him from Iowa State essentially. Got nearly 100 slot bump from number 160 overall to number 64. So he's a 6'5.5", 200 pounder. I believe he has like that 4.5 speed. So he's got some juice at that with that length and that mass. So Miami's super excited about him. And he's another one in that top 100 range, that top 70 range. That's a huge win that Miami was able to get on the trail. Another, on the defensive side, another flip in season flip, Keyshawn Standstill. That was a huge, huge
Yeah.
win for the program to kind of get him over, to flip him from Clemson. So that's typically a pretty rare thing, but he got a huge bump. Not sure the math on this, but number 217 to number 72 overall. So that's a fourth top 100 talent and a second one that Miami was able to add this fall. So that's massive. Miami's adding 2 top 100 talents, 2 more, well, 3 more because we're going to get into the next one. But Keyshawn Standstill is now considered one of the top defensive line prospects in the country. He's having a monster senior year as well. Safety JJ Dunnigan goes from number 99 to number 92. Again, I think even a 7-spot jump in this update that had so much movement is notable. And so another top 100 defensive prospect. So that's 3 top 100 defensive prospects that Miami flipped this fall. So that's a huge deal. We mentioned Gavin Weller and the huge jump that he saw. A couple more commits that saw jumps. Shari Charles went from number 151 overall to number 115 overall. So that's a pretty significant leap. He's an edge rusher out of Venice that has been committed to Miami since the summer months. He's playing awesome football as a senior. So that's an encouraging development. Camden Portis, Miami's defensive back commit from 176 overall to number 116. So 60 spot jump. He's someone that I think is interesting, right, David? Because I remember earlier in the process, he committed really early in his recruitment. He's obviously the son of Miami great Clinton Portis, but was kind of lean and small. And I think he's kind of starting to fill out in a way that's encouraging. Of course, his dad, he has the NFL bloodlines and all that stuff, but he's starting to kind of grow. And I think he's kind of starting to put it all together as a senior. And that was reflected with a huge bump. Another defensive prospect who got a big jump is Jalen Waters. I think 90-ish spot jump from 221 to 134. So, I mean, that's another top
Big time
150 type.
corner.
Yeah, I mean, he's long. I asked him what his height weight was these days. He says he's 6'2", 185. So he is already built like a college cornerback, and he's only going to get bigger as he kind of gets into a college strength and conditioning part. He's just extraordinarily long. Kind of has
The
like those,
arms.
yeah, those just go-go gadget arms where the reach and the length is just absurd. And then he just has like natural coverage ability as well. So I think that this is a gem in Miami's class where they've recruiting high level corners like this out of high school have not come easy for Miami, and getting Jalen Waters on board and hanging on to him throughout the process is a
Yep.
big deal. So I think that that's a big one. Another, just out of the top 50 now, Ben Cogden, an offensive lineman out of the state of Ohio, who gave Miami a pretty early commitment. I think he was one of their first commitments this cycle. He's a 6'7", pushing 300-pound offensive lineman, just a massive
He's
body
big.
who's playing some awesome football as a senior. He has a really polished wrestling background in the state of Ohio, where wrestling is a big, big deal, and he's a heavyweight in that region. So, he's just a big, athletic offensive lineman that I think, you give him some time to bake in Alex Miraball's system and all that stuff. I think between Jackson Cantwell, Ben Cogden, and Joel Irvin, you have three massive and athletic body types to develop. So I think that this is a really good offensive line class. The last one, David, that got a bump in this top 247 update is another in-season flip edge, DeAnthony Lafayette, who was previously committed to LSU. He debuts in the top 247 at 231 overall. So on the back end of that top 247, and he earns his fourth star. So again, this is a 6'1", 230-pound edge rusher. He has a 6'8" wingspan, so he's longer than he is tall, but he does have that reach, and he definitely has that motor off the edge that helps him just get after the quarterback. And Miami's super excited about him. So this was, I think, probably the most
It's a
encouraging
good
update
class.
of any school in the country, as far as just guys seeing a ton of movement, upward movement, because there was a lot of guys. There was, you know, 2 dozen guys who lost their four-star status. A bunch of guys that fell out of the top 247. I think there was 54 newcomers into the top 247. So the fact that Miami not only got guys in, but also had guys elevate, I think is just a testament to how, the talent evaluators view this Miami class and the talent that's inside of it.
Let me ask you this, and I don't know if you have the answer, but Miami had two guys that fell out of the
Yeah.
24/7. Vance Spafford, the receiver from California, and Israel Briggs, the tight end out of California as well. Both are still four-star players,
Yeah.
90 grades, so still, blue chip prospects. But do you have any idea maybe why they were slotted out of the top 247?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think this was just a big update, and I think they're looking at a lot of different things. I think with Briggs, he's just a kind of lean prospect, right? Like I
Yeah,
think just from a mass standpoint, there's
receiver,
probably,
tight
yeah,
end.
exactly. So I think there's maybe that debate, and if he's gonna play tight end, there's probably just gonna be just some development that needs to happen there as far as just him physically adding the mass that he needs, or the frame. I think he's still talented, they still like him. He's still a four-star prospect. And look, again, they cut four-star status a lot. So like this is
Yeah.
still someone that they like. So I don't know the answer specifically. I would assume that's why. And then Van Spafford, I know he had a foot injury that he's dealing with. So maybe
Yeah.
he's not. I don't think he played very much as a senior. Look, this is still a guy that a couple years ago ran like a 4.3 in the 40 at Future 50. So this is a guy with a ton of speed and a ton of juice. And as we've talked about, Miami's looking for that. So he's still someone that could come in and potentially, contribute or push to play because of, the speed that he brings to the field.
So Miami is now at 30 commitments for this 2026 class. Again, it pen to paper in less than 2 weeks now, so
Yeah.
it's coming. I really like this class. To me, man, like the thing I think, Mario Cristobal, right? Line of scrimmage team, line of scrimmage coach. Right now, if all these players end up signing, which who knows what happens down the stretch, maybe you lose a guy or two, I don't know. But right now, Miami has 14 players committed from the offensive and defensive line. So half the class basically is from the line of scrimmage. And I love that approach because you throw, outside of quarterback, right, the most impactful position in the sport. Uh, those are the position groups that matter most, offensive and defensive line. Throwing numbers at those positions, I think, is smart. To me, Gabby, like you hit on like an average of two or three offensive linemen, two or three defensive linemen per cycle, and stack that. over the course of 3 or 4 cycles, and you are recruiting and developing very well. And so I think that potential is here on the offensive line. I also, I like the idea of the defensive line class. I like the body types of the interior guys. I like the motors of the edge guys and the high school production. Um, and, overall, when I look at this class, it's hard to ignore the numbers and the talent that they're adding at the line of scrimmage. I don't know. Does anything stand out to you just looking at it on paper now?
Yeah, no, it's a lot of numbers, and I'm a huge advocate for this, right? I think last cycle I was pretty um, forward about the fact that I did not think that they brought in enough on the defensive line. They brought
Yeah.
in two interior defensive linemen, and Dante Simpson and Micah Newton. I thought both of them were kind of potential toss-ups. Dante Simpson's obviously played well, and then you brought in the edge rushers in Herbert Scroggins and Hayden Lowe, which you feel good about those guys, but just not enough numbers. And I think in this era of college football where rosters are expanding, and just in general, I just think the line of scrimmage is not somewhere where you need to where numbers can't be lacking. And thankfully, Miami's talented, and I think it hasn't really come up yet. But you're going to lose guys like Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor and David Blay, and it's just like you're going to have to kind of replenish the well. Ideally, you get to a place where you have just so many guys coming in, rolling through, where you're able to figure out if two hit, if instead of like, look, Miami basically hit. Let's say we don't know really much about Micah Newton yet, but let's say in theory, Miami hit at a 50% clip with between Dante Simpson and Micah Newton. Imagine if you throw 8 guys, 7 or 8 guys into the mix there, and then you hit on 2 or 3. So now you have 2 or 3 Dante Simpsons that you feel good about instead of just one. So I really like that they're just throwing numbers at this situation. I love what they're doing on the offensive line class between like getting a potential like multi-year guy in Jackson Cantwell along with a couple other guys in like Joel Irvin and Ben Cogden, who are just big, long, athletic dudes, huge bodies. And again, I think it just helps widen the gap. I think my this class is going to help Miami
Yeah.
just widen the talent gap within the ACC, right? We always talk it's Miami's got these a lot of these conversations that we're having at the beginning of this podcast don't happen if you're just the best team in the ACC by a wide margin and you're just running through the conference. Miami still obviously needs to get to that point, and the way that they're recruiting are just continuing to separate them from the pack as from a talent acquisition standpoint. So I love what this recruiting class is on both sides of the line of scrimmage, and really just in general. I think that it's a solid class littered with guys who could eventually be, at the very worst, key rotational pieces, but I also think there's a ton of future starters. So I like what Miami's done here, and I love the numbers. Like it feels like quality numbers. It doesn't feel like numbers just to take guys. Like I don't feel like there's a lot of this, like a lot of that, just like we just taking this guy, we'll figure it out or whatever. Like I feel like there's actually some like quality across the board.
Yeah. And look, I think the ACC point you make is, again, we keep pounding that point. I think it's a good point. Miami's class, again, number 10 in the country, 24/7, their rankings has Miami seventh with the seventh best class in the country. You look at the second best ACC team according to the composite, it's Florida State, who is at 14th in the country. To me, it's another typical fraudulent Mike Norvell recruiting class. We talk about line of scrimmage. Florida State, they have, I think, like 10 guys on the line of scrimmage committed. Only two of them are 4-star players, according to 24/7 Sports. Also, too, like, the gap, I think to the average fan, right? You say Miami has the number 10 class, Florida State has the number 14 class. Oh, they're kind of in the same ballpark. They are not in the same ballpark.
At
It is
all.
a it is a massive difference, that gap, because Miami, by the recruiting score, is at a 280.43. Florida State's at a 252.38. So that's a 28-point gap. If if you added 28 points to Miami's class, Miami would have the number one class in the country. So the gap between Florida State and Miami, 10 to 14 is wider than the gap Miami to the number one class. Now, that's a huge gap still. Like, I'm not saying Miami's close to having the number one class, but it just kind of underscores the difference between a top 10 recruiting class and the number 14 recruiting class in the country.
It's a massive difference at that level. Like just in that when you start getting into that tier, there's a huge, huge difference.
When when you look at just closing out this class, is there anyone? I know I ask you this every week, but we're down the stretch, so
Yep.
we got to check in on this. Miami now, they are in they're in striking distance of Texas in
Yeah.
terms of recruiting class rankings. Texas is at 282, Miami's at 280. Is there anyone you're monitoring down the stretch that could give Miami that juice to, push them up into the recruiting rankings?
Yeah, I still think they're going to continue chasing after some of these top defensive linemen, right? The Bryce Perry Wright's committed to A&M, the Nolan Wilson committed to Alabama. You got Anthony Jones, Tank Jones committed to Oregon, who's a new five-star for 24/7 Sports. So that would be like a massive, massive pickup. You got Jalen Lott, who's committed to Oregon as well. He's someone that Miami has been working on for a long time. You got a guy like Grant Wise, an interior offensive lineman committed to Clemson. Like maybe that's something Miami really pushes for, down the home stretch of this thing, if they're able to maybe figure something out or whatever the case is. So Amari Latimer, running back out of the state of Georgia, he's another one. He's a four-star with a 90 grade. I don't know if he would close that gap, but he would help. Blake Stewart, it sounds like he's trending to Georgia, so I don't really expect him to be in Miami's class anymore, regardless. He's someone that Miami's kind of going after. And we'll see if they end up kind of going after some other guys. I think they're kind of starting to dabble into the junior college stuff, and I think this is the time of year where some of that stuff kind of starts to materialize. So we'll see if anything kind of comes down to the stretch to help Miami fill some gaps.
All right, let's take a quick break here. And then on the other side, we'll get into this upcoming game against Virginia Tech. All right, we are back. Gabby, we'll run through this relatively quick pace. Miami gonna, take its show on the road this week. Final two games of this regular season on the road. This week they travel to Virginia Tech, Lane Stadium, noon kickoff. Game will be on ESPN. In terms of like injury talk, again, we're recording this on Thursday. First injury report will come out tonight, Thursday night, and then there'll be one Friday, and then before the game Saturday morning. To me, the guys to monitor, I think CJ Daniels is close, probable, questionable to probable. To me, it's just a matter of like, do you think it's worth playing him against Virginia Tech? Do you need him against Virginia Tech? Like, what's the balance there of like, okay, we'd prefer to have him for Pittsburgh, 100% healthy. If we play him against Virginia Tech, does that become an issue? Mark Fletcher, I would say, is like doubtful to questionable. OJ Frederic, I would say, is doubtful. Keontae Scott has already been confirmed as out for this regular season. For the Virginia Tech side of things, I think one of the interesting uh, things to know, I don't think this is like an injury related thing, but wide receiver Donovan Green is no longer with the team. He left the team and did not play last week against Florida State. Besides that, they kind of have their regular guys going. All-time series, Miami leads the all-time series 26-15. Hurricanes have won four straight. Miami has won six of the last seven and eight of the last 10 between these games against Virginia Tech. This season, the Hokies are 3-7. They fired their head coach Brent Pry on September 14th, so early in the season. This week, they made their hire. They hired James Franklin. To me, Gabby, I think it's a great hire for Virginia
Awesome
Tech.
hire.
Signals that they're serious about football.
Yep.
Will pour more resources into football, which is good for the ACC. It's good for Miami.
Yep.
College football is more fun when Miami has that rivalry going. Do you think the hiring of James Franklin is going to have some juice this week for Virginia? It's a road game
Yeah.
at Virginia Tech, Lane Stadium. Do you think that will translate on the field to the game?
I'm curious I don't know if it'll translate onto the field, but I think just like the environment, I expect that Lane Stadium's going to be fired up, right? Like I imagine there's going to be some introduction of James Franklin as the new head coach. Like I'm sure people in Blacksburg are going to be eager to see the new head coach. They're having a massive recruiting weekend. They're getting like a former Penn State quarterback commit, Troy Hun. He's on campus. I think they're going to get like a top 100 Penn State or former Penn State commit on campus. A bunch of other guys that had Penn State ties to campus, and so like I think there's going to be some energy in Blacksburg around this game. Now, look, the team is still kind of the team. This is a 3-win team, and they've kind of struggled, especially recently. But I think in some ways too, this like especially for guys that have eligibility left, and if you care to be at Virginia Tech, this could be sort of like a dress rehearsal, first impression for your new head coach. Like this is going to be the first time he probably really watches you play. So I think it's a good opportunity for some of those guys on the team to be like, hey, I'm almost he could burn down this roster, right? Like he could just start
Yeah.
from scratch. So like, there could be a few guys that are like, hey, I want to be here and I need to perform at my best to show Coach Franklin that, I can help him win in 2026.
What type of, we talk about the recruiting of the ACC, and since Mario Cristobal's come into the conference, they've dominated recruiting within the conference. Do you think, like, what type of impact do you think James Franklin can make at Virginia Tech, who's not like traditionally a crazy recruiting firepower type of program,
Hmm.
but that's what James Franklin does. He's very
Right.
much in the same mold of Mario Cristobal as like recruits hard, runs a good program. Um, do you think it's possible? And look, some of this might depend on what you think Florida State's going to do with their head
Right.
coach. But do you think it's possible for James Franklin to have Virginia Tech as the second best recruiting program in this conference? Can they leap Florida State? Can they leap Clemson? Can they leap, North Carolina throws numbers at it?
Yep.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think that they could definitely be. I think James Franklin automatically gets like puts Virginia Tech in that top tier of just head coach recruiters, right? Guys who understand this and understand that the name of the game is talent acquisition, and Penn State does that as well as anybody. And he is in a region that he's still that I think he has plenty of
Yeah,
familiarity in, like Virginia. I'm not a big
that's his spot.
geography guy. Yeah, like it seems like that's his region. Virginia,
Yeah.
you still have access to
Maryland.
Pennsylvania. Yep, the DMV. Like I think that that's always been Virginia Tech's bread and butter is kind of going with, getting guys from the DMV and getting guys from that region, that mid-Atlantic sort of where I think that James Franklin could very easily turn Virginia Tech into a strong ACC recruiting power. Now, where that is, I think that maybe time will tell, but I don't think I think with James Franklin alone there, I mean, he's a better recruiter than every other head coach, I would say, that's probably in the conference. And I think he's more willing to play ball. And Virginia Tech, and he wouldn't be there, like you said earlier, David, if Virginia Tech didn't commit to doing this the right way with the proper resources. So Virginia Tech's a cool spot. They have an awesome, legendary stadium that you can get people excited about if the right guy's in there. So I feel like this is kind of like a stars aligning moment for Virginia Tech, and they got to maximize this opportunity. And if they give James Franklin what he needs, I wouldn't be surprised if he makes some noise now before signing day, and
Yeah.
if he kind of kicks this thing into an interesting gear in 2027.
Yeah, for that 2027 class, right? Like if Florida State brings back Coach Norvell, I think James Franklin has a higher ranked class than them. Dabo Swinney, like the juice just doesn't seem to be there anymore. So I don't know. I think it's on the table where, I think Mario's still gonna have Miami as the top recruiting class in the ACC, but I think James Franklin can get them up to number two,
Yep.
depending on, again, what Florida State
Yeah,
does
and
with
I think
their
what
head
Clemson,
coach.
I think where Clemson pivots to now, like I think it'll be interesting to see how Clemson responds to
Yeah.
whatever they're doing right now, because I think there has to be a change there.
Yep.
And I'm curious if like Clemson is like kind of gets has their hand forced and has to just adapt to what this thing is, because Clemson at its best is up there too. It,
Yeah, 100%.
they're just
100%.
choosing to play. They're choosing
They're
to
just
operate.
backsliding is the
Yeah,
point though.
yeah, and I feel like they've chosen to operate in a way that doesn't allow them to maximize what they can be, but which
Yeah.
is insane. But I think Clemson, if they pivot, I think always has a chance to be up there too.
So interim head coach is Philip Montgomery. He was their offensive coordinator. He's kind of a career OC. Their defensive coordinator, Sam Seifkes, who was a linebackers coach in the NFL. This is his first time first season being a high level defensive coordinator. Um, so coaching staff, it kind of reflected a head coach that was on the brink of getting fired, frankly. Their offense, 23 points per game, 98th in the country, 359 yards per game, 74th, 5.2 yards per play, that's 82nd. Rushing offense is kind of what they do. That's their bread and butter. 187 yards per game on the ground. Third down, they're converting 43%, which is 44th in the country. Red zone touchdown percentage is 40th best in the country. 2.2 sacks allowed. Defense, they are allowing 30 points per game. That's 108th in the country. 373 yards per game allowed, which is 74th. They rank 106 in pass efficiency defense. Run defense ranks 85th in the country at 155 per game allowed. 1.8 sacks per game. So not overly, impactful pass rush. Only 6 turnovers forced this year. That ranks 127th, so not much playmaking. 43% allowed on third down. That's 112th. 65% red zone touchdown rate. That's 103rd. Special teams, they rank 120th in net punting at 36 yards per attempt there. 125th in kick return defense. 93rd in the country in kick return average. They're also similar to Miami in this regard, a highly penalized team. Virginia Tech's kind of in the hundreds on most of their penalty stats. So let's dive into the personnel quickly, Gabby. I think to me, man, this game, this Virginia Tech team kind of boils down to Kyron Drones, their quarterback. He makes them go. If he has a fantastic performance, maybe this game is a little tight. If he doesn't get much help, then I think it's going to be a long day for the Hokies. But Kyron Jones returns. Miami fans know him from last year. What are your thoughts on him at quarterback here?
Yeah, I mean, just he's a tremendous athlete. He's someone that, I think what he does best is when he kind of gets his legs rolling. Like I think he has like 9 rushing touchdowns on the year. He's over
Yep.
500 yards on the ground, to
Yep.
go along with over 1,700 yards passing. So, I mean, I feel like he is their offense. He is the primary engine in this offense, along with their running back, Marcellus Hawkins. But I think, to your point, David, it all boils down to how Kyron Jones performs. If he's able to get free, if you're able to kind of make him one-dimensional,
Yeah.
um,
Keep him in the cage.
right. It's tough for this Virginia Tech offense to operate efficiently, just because it seems like just a program that's just kind of depleted and
Yeah.
defeated. So yeah, Kyron Jones is a good college player though, and you gotta lock in on him and key on him, if not, he can be problematic to deal with.
They lean into his running ability too. Like if you look at the splits between his rushing yards being scramble yards or designed runs, he gets most of his yards on designed runs. I think he's over 500 yards on the year gained on designed runs. That's second in the country amongst Power Four quarterbacks. That only trails Haynes King on designed run rushing yards amongst Power Four quarterbacks. So they designed that up pretty well, honestly. Like it's definitely a key part of their offense, quarterback design runs. He'll scramble too, but really you want to force him to get into that drop back passing game. And if he gets you on a couple scrambles, you just kind of clap your hands. Their running back, you mentioned him, Marcellus Hawkins, 5'11", 220, kind of your sturdy, thick type of running back. I don't know if he's like overly physically dynamic,
Hmm.
but he's got 677 yards on the ground, only 1 touchdown. Um, but he's also the other key to know, I think, for their offense.
Yeah, 6.2 yards per carry. He's no Bayshul Tootin, but
No,
he's
similar mold, but
right.
not that guy.
Yeah, not juiced up the way Tootin was. But they've done a good job of kind of dipping into like the FCS ranks and finding some of these guys. I
Yeah.
think he was a Central Missouri
Yep.
transfer.
Yep.
So Marcellus Hawkins is again respectable running back, and their offense ultimately kind of comes down to those two. Donovan Green, as you mentioned, David, no longer with the program. And then, Aiden Green is kind of like their guy at receiver. And Miami
Yeah,
played against him last year, and he actually had a pretty good game. I actually think he's pretty good. Um,
he's got some juice.
yeah, he's a good player. I think it's really those two. And if you limit the running game and you make it difficult on them, I just think you kind of just bottle them up and you can kind of have your way. So I think that's going to be one of the keys to this game.
Offensive line, 132nd pass blocking grade from PFF, run blocking 107th. Those numbers within the conference, 17th and 14th. So
Oof.
not a good offensive line. Let's flip it over to the defense. And Gabby, like to me, this defense, like Miami's played against some bad defenses this year. NC State, Syracuse, Stanford. To me, Virginia Tech's not quite as bad as those defenses, but it's close. Really, when you watch them, the position that catches my eye is linebacker.
Mhm.
The Caleb brothers, I don't know, Caleb Woodson. He's
Mhm.
kind of the starting weak side linebacker, and then Caleb Spencer, his backup, former Miami player. Those two bring some athleticism to that second level of the defense. But man, I'll let you talk. But outside of those two, I don't really see much talent.
I'm with you. I mean, both those guys were on that defense that played against Miami. I mean, Virginia Tech got gutted by the portal. They lost
Yeah.
Mansour Delane to LSU. They lost to the other corner, Dorian Strong, I think just to the NFL, right? They
That's
got
the
kind of,
thing. Like the last couple years, you could tell, like, okay, Virginia Tech's defensive front, the talent's dipping, but they still had those DBs.
yeah.
Now they don't.
Yeah, and even on the offensive line, they lost the Braden Moore kid to
Yep.
LSU, and then not the Isaiah, the kid that went to Auburn,
Yep.
Xavier.
Yep.
So they got kind of gut. I mean, that's where Virginia Tech's been, right? Virginia Tech should like
Yep.
is typically one of those programs that they get their guys and you keep them, and they end up being good. But now in the portal era, those guys are getting plucked. So yeah, I think Caleb Spencer, Caleb Woodson are two guys that they were on that defense last year that I mean pushed Miami to the end, right? Like they
Hmm.
almost upset them. Caleb Spencer had a big pick in that game.
Yep.
Caleb Woodson can played a role in that game as well. Again, otherwise, I think that this is just it's not a great defense on a team that a lot of these guys I'm sure won't be back next year. So just
Yeah.
a team undergoing transition. So I think that's just a lot of what you see here.
To me, the issues comes boils down to tackling. I don't think they're a very good tackling defense, and their coverage just isn't good. They don't have talent, and they're also just not on the same page very often. All right, three things we want to see. Gabby, where do you want to go with this?
Yeah, dominate, right? For me, that's I think kind of stay on that same pace that you've been on the past 2 weeks with Syracuse and NC State, and that's a big ask, right? Like I think it's tough to like predict that, but just where Miami's at and what they're playing for, I think you need to just continue to leave no doubt that you've turned the corner, that team that you were in the middle of the season, you've moved past that. You're once again playing like a playoff caliber team. And I think to do that, you need to dominate a team that's in the thick of going through transition. And, they haven't won, they haven't been, I mean, lost by 20 points to Florida State last week. They've been getting kind of beat down. Vanderbilt early in the season beat them by 24. So I think you need to kind of just make a statement, and there needs to be a win that's in that range of
Yep,
just like, more than 3 touchdowns and show like, yeah, like we can beat on these guys too, especially, the SEC and, all that stuff.
that's it. I mean, we don't need to get in the weeds on this game. It's just hammer them.
Hmm.
Win by, score 40 points, hold them to under 20 points, look the part against a bad team. The offense needs to continue to look good, style points. And then on defense, right, as we've said, just stop the run, stop the run, stop the run.
Yep.
So really, that's all I kind of got for
Yeah.
what we want to see. How about a matchup you like the most?
Yeah, I think just like the running game, Miami's running game against Virginia Tech's run defense. Virginia Tech's given up over 200 rushing yards in each of the last two games, over 230 rushing yards in each of the last two games. So I am curious,
Yeah.
with Miami's, kind of finding itself again in the run game, if this can be a situation where, we could see kind of a Gerard Pringle like true breakout game. Is Mark Fletcher back, David? I know you might have mentioned it earlier.
I would put it as doubtful, but
Doubtful.
I
Yeah.
think it's on the table.
Yeah, so I think like Isaac Brown had like 115. I think this was the last game he played in before he got hurt, or this was the game he might have gotten hurt in. He had
This
like
will be a
100.
Pringle game, I think.
Yeah, I think this is a and I think he's going to be able to run, really,
Yeah.
really well in a game like this. So just continue to build his confidence down the stretch, I think is good. And then when you get Mark Fletcher back, I think you have a really solid, like, 1-2 punch there between those two guys. So I like if Miami can kind of continue pouring it on Virginia Tech on the ground, I think that would be solid.
I'll go Miami's front seven against the Virginia Tech protection. I
Yeah.
think you stop the run and force Virginia Tech to pass, it's going to be ugly. It's going to be a bloodbath at the line of scrimmage. How about a matchup to keep an eye on?
Yeah, it's the run game, right? Just the way that Virginia Tech's able to kind of run the ball. They've been doing it when they do it effectively. Those are the games that are tight, or they
Yeah,
make it close, or they give teams a scare, or they win. They beat NC State earlier in the year.
yep.
Running the ball quite well against them, and they beat Cal at home. Running the ball well against those guys too. So, I think it's about limiting that run game, and I think if you limit their run game, it's you kind of just have a grasp on them, and there's not really much else that you can do there.
How about and I agree. It's just kind of like Kyron Drones putting the team on his back
Yep.
is the thing that would concern me. Player that needs to step up.
Yeah, I just thought of Motori just because of the run game and the quarterback run game. Just having a guy that can be physical with Kyron Jones is a big dude, just a guy who can be
Yep.
physical and help just kind of key in on that. And I think Motori is someone I would like to see have a nice strong game in a setting like this.
Yeah, I'll go Bryce Fitzgerald just
Yeah, he's who
because,
I wrote down first, and I switched it.
I think look, he stood up and did well against NC State. He was the first guy to go in at nickel. They did rotate some guys there, but I think more and more, and look, NC State tested Bryce in coverage, and they went at him twice early. I think first two plays of the game, they went at Bryce Fitzgerald. I would say let's see how Bryce Fitzgerald does when teams run the ball at him. That's kind of the next test he needs to pass.
Mhm.
I think, he's physical, he's active. Is the tackling technique always where it needs to be? To me, that needs to be cleaned up this offseason. Uh, but to me, Bryce, if the nickel keeps playing well in this defense, it's a tough defense for the opponent to deal with. How about a potential player of the game?
Yeah, I'm going Pringle. I'm a big Pringle guy, and I think that this could be a I think this could be his kind of. I know he's had some sort of coming out party, but I think this could be a potential true coming out party for him on the road. So excited for an opportunity ahead for him.
Yeah, I like that one. I would pick him too. So I'll stay on offense. I'll ride the hot hand. I'll say Keelan Marion.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Um, he's a guy that he's produced the last three games. Again, Virginia Tech's tackling is a little bit questionable. I could see him popping maybe some quick game plays in the passing game and generating some explosives. So I'll go with Keelan Marion. All right, lines, betting lines, odds, and then our predictions. So Miami's, according to FanDuel right now on Thursday morning, Miami's a 17 and a half point favorite. The over under is at 48 and a half points. Gabby, where are you going?
Yeah, I got Miami covering. I think I'm gonna go like 38-10. So what? That's a
Okay.
28 point win. I that's
And the
about
under.
and the under. Ooh. Um, Yeah, but I feel like it's just going to be another dominant display for Miami. I think that they have a chance to, again, really just continue to hammer this thing home that they're playing some awesome football. And I think that this is really just kind of a one-trick pony offense
Yeah.
with the running game. And I think if you can kind of key in on it, and I think Miami showed on Saturday that they're playing at a high level on the defensive side of the ball. And so if they kind of maintain that level of play and that just a level of just aggressiveness on defense, I think Virginia Tech's going to have a hard time. I think their offensive personnel isn't really even NC State's level. So I think it's a good matchup for Miami, and I think they have a chance to roll.
I will go Miami 41, Virginia Tech 17. I agree. I think this is a good matchup for Miami. They should win comfortably. They should win with style points. And then we got to crank up the PR battle with the college football playoff. Also view the other results from around the country, see if anything helps Miami in that regard. So be a fun weekend. We'll see how Miami handles business at Virginia Tech. Again, go support our sponsors, Canes Connection, Nick Muserino. Um, please pardon me for battling. I got three-fourths of the way done, and now I'm kind of running out of gas with the throat. But we got through it. Appreciate everyone for listening. And until next time, take care.